Alright, gamers, less crazy Demon 12 here. Today I'm going to be talking about Jiaoqiu once again as an additive to my other video, as I know for a fact a lot of people have questions. Should I get him if I don't have Acheron? And that's going to be the number one key thing I want to address in this video, is that even without Acheron, he's still going to be a very viable option for your account if you do want him. Of course, he's not mandatory, and like I said in the previous video, I'm going to repeat it again. If you don't have Acheron, or how do I want to word this? If you have Acheron, I think you should pull him because he's very good. He's better than other options. If you don't have Acheron, he can still be worthwhile, but I'm not going to say you should pull him, right? You could skip him and be totally fine outside of that, right? However, in this video, I'm going to hopefully explain to you why he's still good, even without having Acheron in your account. So, how's this apply to non-Acheron teams, considering we have these other very powerful debuffers? Or not debuffers, sorry, buffers. Well, first things first is any team where you would use somebody like Pella or Silverwolf, right? A lot of people will, in some teams, use Pella or Silverwolf because they are very potent characters within those teams. Example, Jiaoqiu plus Pella. She's, her best buffer pretty much. Pella plus Blade as an example, right? You do Bronia then Pella, right? Because you're going to want somebody with skill point positivity to offset their skill point and to also apply debuffs, right? Argenti teams, if you don't use an energy character, a lot of times Team Union's just better, but just as an example. Any team that you're trying to fill in the fourth slot with another debuffer, so if you're trying to do a full buffer debuffer lineup, so hyper carry or zero cycle team or whatever it may be, just it's a stainless team, right? Any of those teams, very, very powerful. And then there's also DOT. Granted, I don't think he's going to be the best in DOT because characters like Run may have re-triggers, right, for the dot. And then, as an example, Robin, right, is giving you another action, so you can get another, dot proc off Kafka or, Robin's action advance. So there will be some debate there, but pretty much everywhere you can use Pella and or Silverwolf, this guy will also work in. And as stated previously, as you saw, with his full cascaded debuffs, he'll be doing better than them in that regard. Now, let's say you don't have E1, let's say you don't have S1. It's just him raw, his 35% vulnerability. It's still very competitive because, again, it's multiplicative on top of everything else. And that's what I want to sort of cover in this video, is that how is he going to compare to the rest of them? Because I know a lot of people could still be confused, despite what I had in the previous video. So first things first, they're going to be like, there's no way you put over half the game up on him helping out. Well, yes, actually, because Pella helps out like basically the whole game. And so a character that's doing a similar thing, he's also going to help out basically the whole game. Now, granted, some of these are unrealistic in some scenarios, to be completely fair, right? A lot of the times you won't be running him and Langxia on the same team. So honestly, you could just remove her, being fair. However, you can realistically run the rest of these pretty much on the same team. So the main examples being Acheron and Kafka. Kafka, of course, being a dot unit, he can be used as a third dot in place of Ruan Mei. So you have Kafka, Black Swan, him, right? Or you just have Kafka, him. Now, granted, I don't think him plus Kafka is going to be better than Kafka plus Black Swan. The numbers just don't really justify it. Black Swan's like stack gain matters a lot to the overall damage, but he does self buff attack a lot, so we'll have to see how that plays out. I could test him out with Kafka on a different account if need be, but I don't really think that's necessary because I'll be honest, I'm pretty sure Black Swan's just better in that regard. Now, triple dot is something that's very interesting. A lot of players use triple dot. He's just going to be a straight upgrade over Gweniphan because he's going to have that higher. He's not going to have the trigger count, by the way. Gweniphan can force triggers, so I'm pretty sure their damage is going to end up the same, even if he's going to have like 5k attack with his attack buff that he gives himself, doing his higher dots plus the overall team damage. But you could also just use his light cone on Gweniphan and get a similar effect. So if you already have an invested Gweniphan and you don't really care about Acheron, you could just get his light cone and put on Gweniphan 100%, and that works for the team and have it be a net damage increase. So something to consider there outside of his actual kit. But for him specifically, you could throw him in a dot team. Now, as just like the Blade example, he's going to be better than Pella, assuming your Pella doesn't have 100% uptime, which he can get 100% uptime, right? You can build him in a way to make him slow, right? While on an Acheron team, I would say you want to front load the stacks. You could actually do the opposite here. So you can still put him on Von Whack, and that's what you do want to do. But you would front load the stacks and then have him be slow like you would run your, your Rome as slow May. You do that. So you get him 121 speed, Von Whack. You have him act first, use his ult, and then do nothing. Because here's the thing. That action right there, assuming you use his technique, is going to apply one stack. It's going to apply the stack from the ult, a stack from a skill. Right? So you already start out with 3 stacks off the rip. And then you're going to get 2 more from the enemy actions or whatever it may be. Or if he goes a second time, whatever it is. In fact, I missed that because he's going to apply 2 stacks of a skill. So you start out with 4, and you get 5 immediately if the enemy acts, which they're going to act turn 1, because that first turn you typically aren't attacking unless, of course, you're using a high-speed sparkle or something, right? So in that case, you actually start the battle of max stacks, and he goes away. Because his ultimate acts on his turn alone, you're gonna have max stacks throughout the duration of the MOC fight, basically, 100% of the time. This is an incredible effect because this means you have 100% uptime on 35% vulnerability, ignoring his ultimate vulnerability, which matters specifically for ult-based teams. Why does that matter? Well, because Hela does not have full 100% uptime, and the only way to get her full uptime is with like tutorial. But if you don't have tutorial, then you won't have full 100% uptime unless you're like spamming skill and getting constant debuff triggers, right? Why does this matter? Well, Pella without tutorial isn't actually going to beat him in terms of net damage. So you can see here, if we drop Pella's damage down, or defense reduction down to 42, you're getting 54% damage taken, right? This pink guy here, with just 35 vulnerability, is doing 57% damage taken. And you can have this 100% of the time. This right here is an upgrade over Pella, hands down. The only problem is that Pella is more skill point positive because you can do skill basic and get your ultimate. He has to spam skill. But given that scenario, if you have the SP positivity, which basically everyone does, especially if you run Gallagher, he's better, right? I want to just point that out, right? The only time Pella starts beating him is whenever you include Pearls, which has a 1-turn restriction on both application and uptime. So if you apply it, the enemy acts, you lose your Pearl proc. So that means you effectively in a lot of scenarios won't have 100% uptime. When you do have 100% uptime, yes, on paper, Hela can beat him out at 58%, right? It does beat him out. However, not everyone has S5 Pearls, and you also will not have 100% application on your S5 Pearls because if the enemy acts, you lose it. So, yeah, if Pearls is up, Hela theoretically will be better. If it's ever down, Jiaoqiu beats it out. And this isn't including the fact that you could just put Pearls on him if you really want to. Granted, you're going to completely nuke your debuff stacks for the ultimate if you don't have 177.8 effect hit rate. But let's say you still have really high effect hit rate with Pearls. Well, you can just put Pearls on him, and now it's actually better than Pella. Again, this isn't realistic at all, but you can actually get some scenarios where it does actually beat out Pella, right, by like 1%. Granted, not realistic. I just thought I'd point that out. There is some stuff you can get there. Regardless, moving forward on how he works on all these teams. He can work as a fourth on a break team to replace Pella, as I already stated. This works here. Shuei he works fine with as well because this is a hybrid character, so you're actually going to get the benefit of both. Versus to where if you were to run a crit character with her or an attack buffer, you wouldn't get your break damage up in there, right? So that works there. Clara, same reason. Pure Fiction. Think about it. You're in Pure Fiction. He has 100% debuff uptime on 35% damage taken. We're not even including the light cone or anything else. You're always going to do enhanced counter damage all the time. You run him as a fourth slot, right? Granted, I'm pretty sure Asta would actually work in terms of like action numbers, I'm not going to lie. But I'm just saying theoretically, you could have this so that everybody's doing more damage. Furthermore, it works for Herta Himiko. You put Herta Himiko in a scenario like that, every enemy just takes more damage no matter what you do, because he can have effectively 100% uptime on his debuffs. Because, again, on entry, you're keeping the same stack number, right? So, like it's still gonna happen. Same thing with Welt. Dan, it's gonna work well with. You can stack him with Pella to get the same effect. Sampo, Luca, and whatever the dot team you're gonna run is with Kafka. We already talked about Black Swan. He's literally gonna just effectively be a Gwenhyphen upgrade. So any place you can run Gwenhyphen as a support, he's gonna be a better version of that effectively. Dr. Ratio even. Let's say you don't have Silver Wolf, you don't plan on getting Silver Wolf, or you're a new player, you have Ratio, but you don't have a good debuffer. Well, because he innately applies already 2 debuffs, right? You're already going to get a good stack count for your Ratio. And hell, as I said, you get his Light Cone or you get his his damn it, what's it called? Pearls. You get pearls on him. Guess what? You now have a bunch of debuffs for Ratio to proc as well. So he's working in a Ratio team. Jingliu, again, replacement for Pella. I do think Pella's just going to be better in this scenario because the ice res down if you do skill. But a lot of times that team doesn't have enough skill points. But if you do have enough skill points, well, guess what? Now he's going to be another option for your Jingliu if Pella's on the other half. Granted, you'd probably swap the two, but I'm just saying for example. March 7th is debatable because you like to do dual DPS teams, so you can honestly just remove her. But here's the thing. Jade. Jade likes to buff the other person up. Again, same scenario as Ruan Mei here. Granted, Ruan Mei is going to perform a little bit better for uptime reasons if you do a slow Mei, but you've got your main DPS, Jade, Ruan Mei, this guy, in the last slot. They will now be just one clearing every floor of Pure Fiction because they're all going to get a damage bonus. They're all going to have a lot of damage taken on them at all times, right? Is it starting to make sense, right? Argenti, similar scenario. Serval, similar scenario. Hook, similar scenario, right? Although Hook does kind of want more energy to recharge more because of the enhanced skill that she gets. So you could just remove her, right? If we're being fair. Sparkle, it's going to synergize well with Sparkle because Sparkle is going to pull everybody up. And well, guess what? They're already going to have the vulnerability. It's just going to stack multiplicatively in terms of the damage you can deal, right? Funny man here. Again, like how you would run Pella in some of his teams. Granted, it's not his best, if we're being real here, but I'm just saying as an example, you run Pella. Well, guess what? Now they have vulnerability. You can just swap, swipe, and boom, they take a bunch of damage. All right. Misha, same thing. You run him in the break team as a fourth, or you could just run him in a brick team. Let's say you've got Ruan Mei on the other side. Granted, this isn't realistic, but I'm just giving you an example. You could do that here. Same thing applies with Gallagher. Firefly, if you don't want to run Gallagher and you want more damage taken, well, there you go, right? You now have a full damage increase across your whole team, right? That's going to be more than what Gallagher provides. A lot of the times you do want the heals, but if your Firefly is strong enough to withstand the fight without heals, well, he's going to be an upgrade there, right? And so on and so on. Same thing with Boot Hill, same thing with the MC, which again, that's just going to combine with the break teams. Same thing with Rame, right? He's going to be additive to all of this in some sort of way, despite the fact that he excels in Acheron, right? He's a universal buffer who just has a niche of buffing Acheron to the extreme. Like Rame, like Robin, it's the same sort of thing. People aren't realizing this because they are lost in the sauce over certain, things, buffs, whatever it may be, but he's in the same tier as what they do, right? People are just getting too attached to the fact that he's specifically insane with Acheron in terms of debuff application that they're ignoring the fact that he is still going to affect everything else in some way, right? I just want to make that clear. And again, any scenario, as I said, the break team, you're still going to get 35% vulnerability, because you ignore the ult vulnerability. You're still going to get 35% vulnerability for everything. Nice damage increase, right? Everywhere else, you're getting the same level of damage increase just by that because he's going to apply it at all times, right? And all these teams, he is doing that, and you're just going to get that, right? I know in the previous video I sound like a salesman for him, really, just like crazy, but I'm trying to emphasize the fact that even without Acheron, you can still make use of him on your account. Should you get him without Acheron? I don't know. That's going to be up to you, right? Do you necessarily need an upgraded Gwenhyphen / Pella? I can't really be the one to tell you that because it's going to be based on your predicament, what you want to do with your account, if you're trying to do 0 cycle clears, or if you're trying to do other sort of scenarios, right? Whatever it may be. Granted, Obviously, if you're doing zero cycle clears, a lot of those rely on the action forward characters, so like Sparkle, Robin, whatever it may be. So you would definitely perform better with them in certain scenarios, like just do like a triple quad pull or whatever on your main DPS, whatever it may be. But this is going to give you another very solid option for your count overall. And the fact that he is a dot character, mind you, them having these stacks count as them taking fire dot means he's going to synergize with whatever dot buffs there are. So this is another thing that people aren't even realizing. I don't have dot on my account. I've avoided DOT because I don't like the playstyle. It's cringe. It's also not as effective as these other, hyper carry playstyles. Him being DOT means that I will now have an option that synergizes with whatever DOT effects are on the current buff. Think about that. A lot of times players don't have the characters to synergize with a certain active buff. Well, because I don't have that for dot, I'm now going to have a character that's going to synergize with some of these dot buffs in MOC, Apocalypse Shadow, Pure Fiction, right? So if you're like, damn, I'm struggling over here, and it's a dot centric buff for the active stage, well, now you have a character that is doing all this and helping you by giving you those dot procs for that stage. Right? That's another thing that people aren't realizing. There is some massive flexibility with him in how he functions for your actual account and what you can do with him overall, right? It's very potent. And I say that I've been saying that a lot recently, but like there's no other way to describe this. He's doing unique things that other characters are not doing, right? Just flat out. And there is inherent value in that. Is it as important as like what Ruan Mei does, being like the best in the game? No, it's not. I'm not going to claim that is. I'm just saying that even without Acheron, there is something here that might be worthwhile to you, and maybe this video helped explain that to you. I don't know, right? But there is use of him, right? My whole point with all of this, right, and it's what I kind of didn't make clear in the other video, is that even without Acheron, he's still providing value to you. Do you need to get him? No. Is he a must summon? No. But he's still going to be worth it if you do pull him because you're going to get something out of him in most cases. The only time you don't is if you're like a Dan Hung player, so you literally can't use him with skill points, or you're running Mono Quantum Azila, right? As I said, there's a few characters down here like Feng Xiao who, unfortunately, they don't synergize the best because of number of actions. If you looked at her kit, so on and so on. So yeah, there are a number of characters here that can't really make use of him. Actually, I forgot Physical MC, but you get what I'm saying, right? There are some cases where if you use these characters, they don't work as well together, right? Actually, Huoho does allow him to 3-turn ultimate with skill, basic skill. So Huoho plus Acheron is actually going to be viable now. That's besides the point. I didn't even think about that, but energy recharge reasons if you time your ultimate, whatever the hell it is. Actually, wouldn't Gallagher with Quid Pro Quo just be better? Anyways, theory crafting be funny sometimes. Um. So yeah, hopefully this better explains it. Again, it's hard to understand the impact without like having it in game, right? Because I can't exactly show you guys how this functions. I can only really tell you on paper and based on the little bit of footage I do have of him specifically, and you can see based on the numbers in terms of like the actual damage taken compared to all these other debuffers, he is providing just as much, if not more, than everybody else that is applying debuffs, right? Even when you stack debuffs, if you give him his light cone, he is just beating them out, right? As we saw in the previous video, right? This isn't the case 100% of the time. It's gonna be how you build him. And I do think the best way to build him is at least with Von Whack to front load the stacks to make sure you've got 100% debuff uptime. Because this is where the power in it is that he will always have his debuffs active. You're always going to be doing more damage. Nobody else can replicate this, except for like maybe Apella with tutorial. But again, it's going to be less than what he's providing. And here's the thing: you can stack the two of them. Stack the two of them. Stack him with whoever it may be. That's sort of like the whole idea here. Even without Acheron, he's providing value. Hopefully I explained it in this video. Again, I already showed you all the numbers that really matter in the previous video. I did not include the Silver Wolf thing, but here's the thing. Whoa, that's way too high. Even with Silverwolf's thing, he's still doing more with his light count. So yeah, if anyone is wondering, like, oh, you missed the full debuffs, it's still more. Just in case you're wondering. Is that everything? I'm gonna pause once again just to make sure. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. So yeah, hopefully this video addresses the like question, like if I don't have Acheron, should I get him? Is he worthwhile? Yeah, he will be in, for a lot of players, but some players don't need it or necessarily want it, so that's totally fine, right? I will just say in any scenario where you're like, oh, I want a second Pella, or it's like, oh, I really wish I had Pella here, this, and that, then get him, right? 100%, because you can see it on here, right? It's gonna be provable in game. He's doing the same, if not more, right? My only recommendation is if you do get him, consider getting his light cone. I said that in the last video, but it's going to provide you a lot of overall value for your account. Because guess what? You can use his light cone on other characters, mind you. They just get an extra 14% damage taken if they are DOT. But like I said in this video as well, you can consider getting his light cone for Gwenifin, for example, right? Because her damage isn't as impactful on the dot team. So it's really going to be up to the player there. If you do have any other questions, please ask them down below. Because I'm trying to make sure everybody gets a full understanding of what he's actually doing here. And the number one thing for this specifically is, how do I word this? For Acheron specifically, you're getting an extra 15% via your ult damage percent. Everybody gets this. So in any scenario for characters that use their ultimate, like Jiaoqiu, he's going to perform better than Pella specifically. However, Jiaoqiu is also a bad example because Pella has Ice Shred down, so you'd get a little bit more there. And in fact, here, I'll just show you the actual numbers. So if we assume you've got a Sweaty Pella here, right, we already know that his is 63%. Pella with the additional 12% res down does actually beat that out, right? So in that scenario, that's sort of a bad example, but if there is a character that can make use of these damage increases, you'd obviously, be able to do so in that regard. So yeah, hopefully this helps. Again, if you have any questions down below, if I can't answer them, I'm honestly just going to reply with, I'm going to address this in a further video, because in the comparison video that I do, comparing all of these debuffers together, or not all of them. Silverwolf, I'm not going to compare because she's not relevant to the discussion. I'm not going to lie. There's reasons for that. And I'll explain that in that video. But as I've been saying, whenever he comes out, I'm going to do that video on it and ask any questions. If I can't answer it right now, I'm going to try to hopefully answer it in the comparison video. And then additionally to that, I did mention the trend interaction. Yeah, I don't have anything to prove that as of right now. I'll do that in the future. That being said, don't forget to like, subscribe, check me out on Twitch, all that stuff. And as always, good luck on your pulls, guys, if you are pulling for any of the new characters.